Hey, everybody. My name is Jake. I'm a former Jehovah's Witness, current live streamer, and sexual new light reactor. What does that mean? That's a phrase we've all wondered about from time to time, not something I just made up. Well, we're going to discuss it. The long awaited sexual new light reaction is here. I'm a little late to the party on this, maybe. But basically, there's been a long-standing debate in the Jehovah's Witness world, so it comes up all the time in the ex-Jehovah's Witness world, which is whether or not you're allowed to do oral or anal sex within marriage as Jehovah's Witnesses. And weirdly, it kind of seems to depend on the way you were raised. There was some questions. It was unclear for a while, but God, Jehovah God Almighty, has seen fit to clarify what sort of stuff you're allowed to do with your junk. And by the way, we do have a special guest here, which is Bo. This is Bo. And when we have a kitty on stream, that means we get to play the pet corner job.
Our spiritual paradise is a place that has many harmless animals.
Now, what do we mean by this?
I don't know what I mean by that, to be honest, but we do like to play it whenever animals show up on screen. But I have somebody here to help me react to this, and we're a fellow ex-Jehovah's Witness. We're going to talk about this strangeness. We're going to let you in on what's going on in the spicy, sexy world of Jehovah's Witnesses. And then we're going to take some calls, because sometimes I do a call-in show for fun. So you'll just have to wait. There'll be a link in chat to join when that happens, so stay tuned. But joining me today is somebody you might know as Deconstructing XJW or RC. What's up, buddy?
Hey, this is
How's it
going good. I am fired up about this topic, as I'm sure we'll
Yeah.
do, because I was married while I was in the religion, and my ex-wife and I received counsel from the elders based on this 1983 watchtower that is no longer applicable. Apparently, it has been new lighted and does not. It's not
wow.
valid anymore. So
It got strict from the record. I'm going to have to learn the grammar of that before we get too much further. But before we dive deep into your experience with this, let's actually read this clarification. Okay, so sorry the formatting is a little weird, but this is screenshots.
I was also trying to understand: is this just for the elders to be aware of, or will this be read to the congregation?
That is a great question. I am also unclear on this. I believe, because it says for elders here, that this is only to be read
So
by the elders.
The reason I ask is, in your intro you said this is one of those things, like, it's hard to figure out. It depends on where you live and what. And this shit right here is why. Because they're changing what the rules are. But if you read the watchtower that's referenced in this letter to the elders, it's not like, woohoo, new light. Just, hey, everybody, just so you know, we're changing things. It's just a little footnote, little like, oh yeah, the Bible doesn't make any rules. And this is why JWs don't know what can get them in trouble or not until they're in trouble.
Yes. So very strangely, I'll just read the paragraph here. This is from the elders, for the elders, announcements and reminders, March 2025. If you're not aware, the branch offices of Jehovah's Witnesses, so kind of the corporate hierarchy goes, elders are on the local level. Those are, that's your local church leaders of Jehovah's Witnesses. And then it goes up to circuit overseers, and then the branch, and then the governing body. So the branch send these letters, and only the elders get access to these letters. Sometimes parts of them are read to the congregation, but some of them are confidential. And so it's not entirely clear to me right now whether or not this little section is going to be read out loud. But what it says, for elders regarding marital intimacies, the information in the article, Husbands, Honor Your Wife, in the January 2025 issue of the Watchtower, paragraph 17 and footnote, adjusts what is stated in the March 15th, 1983 issue of the Watchtower, pages 30 and 31. Since generally speaking, a married couple would not discuss with others this intimate aspect of marriage, there would be no reason for the elders to be involved. However, if a couple requests assistance from the elders, which raises questions, the elders should base their comments on scriptural principles and the information in the January 2025 issue of the Watchtower. Oh, also Ephesians 5:10. Also the Bible presumably has something to say about this.
It's yeah. Yeah.
What say you about this? Are you pleased? Do you feel Jehovah's Spirit directing the organization?
It's like I said, there are there's like new light, and then there's this shadow new light, which is like this like quiet updates that they don't ever tell the rank and file, hey, oh, by the way, we updated this. And I feel like if you read that Watchtower article, so I sent you a link.
Yeah, well, let's read the Watchtower article
let's
first.
read that Watchtower article, because then this other link also kind of says the same thing, but like 5 years ago. And I was like, wait a minute, did they? I remember my ex-wife and I were still in, and she underlined it and handed me her Watchtower and was like, thumbs up, like, hey, we're good,
Right.
And I was like,
right.
I feel like there should be an announcement if this is a change, and that was.
I like the idea of like an announcement that you might make at a table, like clink, clink, clink. Everybody, we have an announcement to make. We just want to let everybody know that when you go home tonight, you can do a lot of new stuff with your mouth or ... Okay, let's go kind of backwards chronologically through time. So the article that they're talking about, this January 2025 Watchtower, you're a newly married couple as Jehovah's Witnesses. And I think we should explain why this is confusing for people in the religion. Like, when you are a Jehovah's Witness, the dating, like, you can't just go out on dates like a normal person who might date in the world. You're not on the apps. You're dating only within the religion, and when you do go out, you have to have a chaperone who is supposed to be somebody who can keep an eye on you and make sure that there's no canoodling or oral or anal sex outside the confines of marriage.
Fun fact, like this just is on the same subject of who knows what will get you in trouble or not. There is in literature no embracing, I think is the word they used. No embracing, no kissing, no holding hands until marriage seems certain.
Oh, and, even embracing.
So I've gotten counsel on that one, and I was like, it's just like, why should I have to go digging through some old Watchtower article to find this? And then the elders hold me accountable for it. And it's just like, shouldn't this just be public knowledge?
Right.
So as far as it is strange. The chaperones are supposed to stop you from cuddling on the couch. Technically, they're not supposed to let you make out, unless you're like, unless you're like almost married, and then it's like, oh yeah, I can give you a goodnight kiss kind of thing, and that's about it. Is what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, and let's think about this. They said in that letter, and I want to dive into this deeper later, but they say this is not the kind of thing that you would discuss with other people, right? So you would keep that to yourself. You wouldn't even bring other people into that conversation. So think about that as a Jehovah's Witness who is dating, who is if you're doing everything right, you're supposed to be a virgin. You have basically no sexual knowledge whatsoever. You're not allowed to sleep with your partner before marriage, and you're also really not supposed to ask anybody about it. Like, you're not, because people aren't supposed to talk about it because it's considered impolite. So you just have no idea whether or not this thing is
when my ex-wife
okay.
and I were engaged, we were making out like crazy, and then we got
nice.
Somehow, I forget if I think one of the elders just kind of like offhand just made a comment, and then I was like, oh, I have something to confess. Like, you know what I mean? Because I was like, we have been doing that. We've been making out, and then it was, well, like, how did you end up in that situation? which,
How could this be?
yeah, we might have met in a parking lot at a time or two without a chaperone, which is also, that was also, I
Yeah.
was like, oh shit, now I have to tell them this too.
Oh my God. That's okay. Before we even get into that, let me read this thing from the January 2025 thing that I keep threatening to read and then not doing.
Sorry.
So, oh no, it's me. I'm an ADHD kind of guy. Okay, so the paragraph says, "Be kind and respectful. A husband who loves his wife, values and cherishes her. He views her as a priceless gift from Jehovah. As a result, he treats her kindly and respectfully, even during the more intimate and private aspects of marriage. Wink. He will not pressure her to engage in sexual acts that make her feel uncomfortable, that are demeaning, or that bother her conscience." Footnote. He too will strive to maintain a clean conscience before Jehovah. And so this footnote is where they continue to talk around this and really not say, but the Bible does not provide details as to what sexual practices between a husband and wife should be considered clean or unclean. A Christian couple must make decisions that reflect their resolve to honor Jehovah, to please each other, and to maintain a clean conscience. Generally speaking, a couple would not discuss with others this intimate aspect of their marriage. So that clears things up, right?
Yeah.
Take the wheel. Jesus, take the wheel on this one.
Have you ever been in a car group when this subject came up?
No, in a car group when this subject came up?
Well, because it's funny because like I said, I've gotten counsel on this. So then I went and found all the I researched the whole thing, and it comes up in a car group, and the car group would be 50-50 split, you know. Like
Wow.
start arguing like, oh no, I don't think, why would Jehovah care? And I'm just like, oh, and then I don't want to tell them, oh, actually such and such watchtower said, because then it's like, well, why are you looking it up, RC? Like, why are you so versed on this particular, you know?
Right.
So I wasn't going to tell them I had researched it. And the reason I researched is I got counsel. Hang on. But the funny thing is like, I'm sitting there quietly in the back of this car group, and it's like, okay, so you guys are doing it. You guys are doing it. You guys are not. You guys, because of the argument, you kind of know where what's going on, right?
Yeah. Wow, that's really bizarre. Okay, so this came up out in service. I remember this coming up not out in service, but with witness friends at a sleepover, and it was another thing. But like you said, everybody was split. Not everybody was on the same page, and like some people there had never even heard the rule that you weren't supposed to do it. But all of us, because we were all like horny teenagers, had watched porn at that point, you know, and we're aware of it. So it was like on our minds, or we had friends at school talk about like these things or you hear it referenced in pop culture and some sitcom.
Yeah, and you know, I mean, my ex-wife and I guess we might have been like not your average JW because she had read stuff about human sexuality and was sharing things with me and was like, yeah, this is so, you know, like, let's not go in blind. And, you know, one of the things about this policy that immediately I was like, oh, of course, Jehovah doesn't have a problem with this. It's like, let's just have a grown-up adult conversation. A large percentage of women cannot climax from penetration alone. That's just a fact. That's just a physiological fact. And so it seemed clear to me that if Jehovah put all the good stuff on the outside, like why would he do that?
Right.
It just, intuitively, immediately, there was no need for me to go further because it's like, of course this is fine. Like, this is how Jehovah made women's bodies, and I want my wife to enjoy herself. So like, of course this is okay. You know?
Right. The really weird thing, so like eventually, because it is unclear, I like had to ask my parents about it, and they said that it was not okay. They were like, no. I mean, because gay people invented that because they can't have sex the real way. That's what they told me.
Yeah.
And I said, how could anyone know that? How could you know that Adam and Eve didn't didn't do blood stuff in the Garden of Eden. Like they lived for
Oh
hundreds of years.
man.
You really think they didn't like try a couple different
Oh my
things?
gosh. Oh my
But they
gosh.
really thought that and said that.
There's an awful comedian who tells a joke about Adam being alone in the Garden of Eden and just having the animals, and then Eve's created. And he's like, "Oh wow, you've got one on the front too. That's great."
Yeah, I know, but like this is your knowledge. Like we have an almost childlike knowledge of sex as Jehovah's Witnesses. Like that's part of infantilization in a way. It is not just, oh my goodness, Bo, get down,
Someone says,
get
"God
down.
guess the God bless the gay people." Yeah, seriously, they give us all of the best ideas.
Here, you take the reins for a minute. I gotta kick out the cat.
Okay, I'm gonna go through some of these comments because I found some funny stuff. Let's see. A lot of hellos. Hello, everybody. Everybody said hello. I'm saying hello back from the makers of blood fractions, sex fractions. Yeah. Somebody in here. I want to give credit. Derek Maverick. I want to give credit. Someone in here says, "What about pegging?"
I saw that earlier. Great question. I think
Uh,
I saw that Jenny Bloom earlier said like there's a lot of don't ask, don't tell type policies in Jehovah's Witnesses, and I do think that's one of them. I would say that like IVF is kind of another one. Like
oh,
anything surrounding.
the vasectomy one. Oh my gosh, the Weasley words. Like,
Yeah,
we do not blithely take a. It was something like we don't take a blithe view of Jehovah's of Jehovah, of something created by Jehovah. It was so sort of like, you can do this if it's really matters to you, but we really don't
right.
want you to, but we can't tell you, so we're going to put these like little weasel words in this sentence.
Well, it's like this. It's like a Christian couple must make decisions that reflect their resolve to honor Jehovah. So, like, well, what does that mean? The whole question is, does this bring shame upon God? And they won't say. And it's
Well,
because
yeah,
they're cowards.
exactly. Like, it's just like, pull my hair, and it's like, oh, but you kind of look up at the ceiling like, just Jehovah sees what we're doing, right? It's like, is it? I don't know how I feel. It really is. To be honest, like, I feel like that language makes it worse,
Yeah.
because this one of the psychological tools of this organization is these constant self-doubt and self-criticism. And so it's
Yes.
like, if you don't actually give people a very clear, like, here's the line, don't cross the line, but up until this point you're fine. So then what you do is you create this almost like sort of neuroticism, this sort of like scrupulosity, analyzing what, and you know,
Analyzing.
yeah. And I'll tell you, getting into my own story later on, is like, there would be moments where things are not going well in life, and it's like, have we lost Jehovah's blessing? And then where does your mind go? Is there anything we're doing where we might be, grieving the Holy Spirit? And then this is one of those
Right.
things that would be like, well, the elders did tell us not to do this, and we are,
Yeah. But I think, like, I kind of want to stop down on that because this is nobody's business, right? Like, big picture, it's crazy that this is a group that has this level of control of your life where you have to, like you said, sift through reference material like you work at Lumen Industries and the television show Severance to figure out like what the policies are on whether or not you can give your husband a blowjob or you can eat out your wife or whatever.
yeah. The
And that's
governing
like when
body
you're married.
the governing body is basically like the Nick Fuentes of religion. They're just like, your body,
Oh
our
yeah.
choice, essentially. Like, you don't.
They're yes.
You don't own your sexuality. That's not yours. That's ours. You don't own your body. That's not yours. That's ours. We tell you what you can and can't do with this.
Present your body as a living sacrifice to God. So your body is this, your body is a temple, yeah, but it's their temple. It's God's temple. So you don't get to just do whatever you want to your temple. And I also think, like you were saying, it does go to the kind of weaponizing masculinity in a really negative way. Like patriarchy is damaging to everyone. The idea that this somehow like having heterosexual intercourse in marriage could somehow be gay still is absurd, but that really is the fear that it goes back to. Is just that
Guys,
like it's unnatural.
guys, is it gay to make your wife come?
Right. Like according to The Sopranos, yes. Like we were watching rewatching The Sopranos again, and like it's a really great show, kind of deconstructing like the absurdity of certain like masculine things, and that's a huge thing. Is like all the guys go down on their wives, but culturally you're not supposed to. And if people find out about it, they think you're gay because they say, well, they say if you're willing to put that in your mouth, what else are you willing to put in there? It doesn't make any sense. But these arbitrary rules about what a man is supposed to be end up making everybody miserable.
Yeah, my just a side tangent. Another one of these conversations I had with my dad, an elder on his elder body, his wife hanging out with a bunch of sisters started bragging to them about how good her husband was at this, and was like, oh my, you haven't tried it, you guys aren't trying this, you guys should be trying this. So then one of those sisters tells, I think, her husband, however that it happens, it gets back to the elder body. It's like, oh, we
Ayo.
have an elder doing this with his wife, and his wife is telling other sisters, you should get your husbands to do this too. So what happens in like true like grandiose narcissistic fashion is this elder and his wife are in the meeting, and these three sisters are brought in front of them, and his wife denies it to their face. He denies it to their face, says that I'm backing up my wife, and then his wife is dismissed, and him and another elder give these sisters counsel about gossip and slander.
Yeah.
Oh, two witness rule be damned, right?
Yeah.
When
Good
you're a
Lord.
powerful elder and you're a fucking narcissist, and you can just basically like, well, if I break the rules, doesn't count. You guys shut up.
Yeah, that's what a big strong man would do, all right. Give their women a strong talking to. Absolutely absurd. Okay, let's go back in time a little bit because I agree with you. I don't think that this is that much clearer than the previous new light in good old 2016, which had, in my opinion, the most disgusting, like, just say anal. I remember saying this as a witness to my, like, to my parents. I was like, I think love play is so disgusting. I wish they wouldn't have said that. But here's what it said. Although the Bible does not provide specific rules about the kinds and limits of love play that might be associated with natural sexual intimacy, it mentions displays of affection. Christian marriage partners should treat each other with tenderness. Ooh.
Yeah. So I remember I left in 2017, and I remember sitting at the Watchtower study, and my ex-wife underlined the love play and handed me her Watchtower, and she was just like, hey, I think we're good. Like, and I just remember like this was already, everything was unraveling at this point. And for me, this doctrine was the first thing where I secretly said, okay, well, the governing body is not 100% right on
Yeah,
everything.
absolutely.
And so when this came out in 2016, I remember thinking, okay, this is them sort of backing off. But I also remember thinking, I cannot take this Watchtower article to an elder and plead my case that this is okay. This doesn't change anything. So all this changes is I'm going to have a clean conscience personally, and we're going to still keep our mouths shut and never speak of this to anybody. But this does not give you license to stand up against an elder who has, a disgust reflex around this issue, and has decided that it's his job to give you counsel.
Exactly. So I whipped out my copy of Crisis of Conscience. I know I just used the phrase whip out on a stream where we're going to be very careful here. On the most demonetized stream ever, probably.
Yeah.
Um,
Yo, bald guy. I don't know your name. Did your wife wake up with you? We woke up together and we
Jesus.
amicably divorced 6 months later. And whether or not to stay together was almost the first question we had for each other after we woke up, because it was not a happy time for, say, the last 6 or 7 years. So, to answer his question,
Yeah. Okay. I heard this too. Did you hear this, RC, that it was selfish and unclean? Because I heard
I'm
that
not
same
aware of
thing.
that. I had heard that the masturbation was selfish, and I could see how that all fits in though, because then my thought was, when I got married, my first thought was, well, there are times when you're just laying back focusing on your pleasure. And there are times when your partner's laying back focusing on their pleasure. So why is masturbation awful? It's supposed to, supposedly masturbation is so awful because it teaches you to focus on your own pleasure to the exclusion of someone else. And then, like, when
Yeah.
I got married, I was like, well, actually, that's fine as long as that's what we're both doing for each other. What's the problem?
Right.
So I haven't seen that in print, but I wouldn't be shocked if some JWs had that opinion at all.
Yes. It was like a cultural thing. So I got out Crisis of Conscience because um, Raymond Franz he rose to the ranks of the organization, became a governing body member, and then left because once he was in the governing body for a while, he saw that there was really no Holy Spirit directing the organization. Just to give a TLDR for people who might not know, and he said, like, to illustrate his point that there's no Holy Spirit, he actually uses this issue as an example of how it was just constantly flip flopping based on the individual consciences of these, crusty old white guys, these crusty old conservative white guys on the governing body. And, I don't say that because it's like a racial thing, but because this is, the 1970s and they're just old American white men and they have certain ideas.
It
Um,
really is the case, if you just kind of break down the psychology of it, is that a lot of stuff is just, a variation in people's knee-jerk disgust response to things. And it's people moralize that. They don't
yes.
understand the difference between a personal value judgment and, like, well, if this is how I feel, then I'm right. It used to, absolutely. Ray Franz nailed it. Like, it was really just some governing body members had a personal issue with this.
Yes. Okay. So here's because what happened is the governing body, they make this rule, right? Because they're like, nah, that's gross. Ew, it's gay. And then what happens is this actually goes into effect and it impacts real people. And so they get flooded with letters from just individual Jehovah's Witnesses, just couples from all over the world writing them letters. And so I'm going to kind of skim over a couple of things here. This is on page 58 of Crisis of Conscience, if anybody wants to look at this later. An unprecedented volume of mail came in over a period of 5 years, most of it questioning the scriptural basis for the governing body members inserting themselves into the private lives of others in such a way, and expressing inability to see the validity of the arguments advanced in print to support the stands taken. The principal portion of the scripture relied upon was Romans chapter 1, verses 24 through 27, dealing with homosexuality. And those writing to the society pointed out that they could not see how it could be rightly applied to heterosexual relations between man and wife. So apparently that was in writing, the thing I was referencing earlier that my parents said. Other
What
letters,
what,
often from
what
wives,
specifically was
simply
what specifically was in writing?
that it was that oral sex and the anal sex had their origins in homosexuality and therefore would
Oh,
be
okay.
inappropriate. Yeah, apparently that
Yeah,
was
there's a bit of wording of a, naturalistic fallacy in a couple here and there too. It's like the
yes,
natural versus the unnatural, or the clean versus the unclean. That's like, if you just look at the way the human body's designed. Stand a man
right,
to a
yes,
woman, those parts are right there. Why would you flip it around and reverse it? That makes no sense, kind of mentality.
right. And what he references is a lot of letters that apparently he kept, and they're really heartbreaking. And maybe this could lead into kind of some more of your experience with this as well. Like other letters, often from wives, simply express confusion and anguish over their uncertainty as to the properness of their quote sexual foreplay. One woman said she had talked to an elder and he had told her to write to the governing body for a sure answer. So she wrote, saying that she and her husband loved each other deeply, and then she described the certain type of foreplay they were accustomed to, stating, I believe it's a matter of conscience, but I am writing you to be sure. Her closing words were, I am scared, I am hurt, and I am more worried at this time about my husband's feeling for the truth. I know you will tell me what to do. Like, this is the level of power that these people have over members' lives.
Yeah. Jackie Jacks is saying, I remember the BJ issue. Apostate Barbie's saying they never mentioned eating out. They mentioned, let me read to you from the 1969 watch. I have JW Facts open. Or
oh, I do too.
Maybe I can just drop it in the chat.
I happen to have it right here, sir.
You want to? Let's scroll to the bottom and work backwards, because This set the stage. Do you mind if I just kind of tell my story right here?
Of course, please.
My story leads to me researching all of this without going to JW Facts. I just found all this in the Watchtower literature. Okay, so as one may tend to do, raised in this religion, I had a very serious problem with self-abuse from the age of 14 to 25.
Self-abuse.
And eventually got enough of a guilty conscience after some Watchtower study, bringing it up yet the 15th time, that I went to the elders and confessed. And so I was supposed to keep the slate clean and check in with this one elder and see that I'm still, and essentially my ex-wife and I met about a week after that meeting, and she was newly divorced and reinstated. And so first date to getting married was about 3 months. And because we were both like, well, RC, you've got this problem, and I was married and I'm not interested in waiting either. So let's, once we said I love you, which was like 3 weeks in, we started making plans. So meanwhile, I have this on record with the elders. I've been counseled for this one issue. So about a couple months into our marriage, I slipped up and told my wife. And so I go, she sends me to the elders. I want you to go talk to the elders. I don't want a marriage where my husband is doing that to himself, whatever, all the guilt and bullshit of being raised in this kind of purity culture. I don't blame her for it. But so I go to the elders and they read me some scriptures. They encourage me, and you're just, like, we are proud of you for coming to us. And then one of them pulls out this 1983 article that has just been gotten rid of and reads to me directly from it: perverted acts such as oral and anal sex within the marriage, and basically sort of breaking down in his words, because you're a filthy masturbator. Your wife knows that you have a problem with this perversion. So she may, in order to please you enough to keep you from slipping into this nasty habit, she may want to engage in all manner of perverted sex with you.
Oh my God.
So we want to make you aware of this article so that you understand and you don't make matters worse by beginning some of these other new practices on the basis of the fact that you clearly have this problem with sexual perversion. And I'm sitting there like, too late. Too late. Okay. All right. So I went home and I was like, hey, so everything's cool. I'm not in trouble. By the way, there's this other thing. And if I say wife or ex-wife, everybody just file it away.
Yeah,
like, we're not married anymore. But I just telling the story.
Right.
Recalling that time. So my wife goes, okay, if you ever slip up again, we're going to handle it between the two of us. I'm not sending you to the elders again. And so I feel like you could actually say that my deconstruction began that day, 13 years before I left, because that was a sort of like first time openly with another human being, very quietly, something's off about this, and we're going to take matters into our own hands and not necessarily trust the elders and governing body on every single issue. And I personally, being the goody two shoes that I was a little bit taken aback by my wife's attitude of like, we're not going to talk to the elders for our marital problems anymore and whatever. But also cool, because if I never have to confess to masturbation again, fucking fantastic. And who am I hurting other than her at this point? So I'll just talk to her about it. And that's when I went through and to soothe my own conscience, went and looked it up and found that it had been put in place, removed, put in place again in 1983. And as we're going to go through, they basically said, oops, we shouldn't have done that. You know, it really wasn't our place to sort of regulate these sorts of matters. And if you read Crisis of Conscience, you realize what happened is all these letters came in. Ray Franz and a couple of governing body members that had, you know, a conscience, that had empathy, you know, they lobbied for a reversal of this rule, and the reversal came in 1978. And then Ray Franz and a couple others get disfellowshipped. They get exiled from Bethel for, you know, air quotes, apostasy. And then Ray Franz gets disfellowshipped in the early 80s. And in 1983, they reverse the rule again. Like we got rid of those apostates, and so let's bring back the ban on oral sex, because that was one of these apostate issues. So there's a very interesting psychology behind the scenes of the governing body in Ray Franz's book. And of all the things that people are like, why would you trust an apostate? Can you really trust that Ray Franz is telling the truth? And it's kind of funny because it's right here. You can trace out the flip-flop in Watchtower literature and see the 1969, 1974, you know, all the way to 1983, and pretty much verify that Ray Franz's story is legitimate, or at least there's good evidence that he was telling the truth about what happened behind closed doors with this discussion.
I think you can also see that you don't need to listen to some exterior source to realize that this religion isn't true. Like yourself, I just started going through a teaching that I was stuck on, and you start seeing that they've flip-flopped on things. This was one of them, I think, because I was looking into this as a horny teenager. I was like, okay, well, they haven't talked about this in a while, so I'm just going to assume that it's cool. And, you know, like most of the people my age that I talked to seem to think that that was like a lame old rule that didn't apply anymore. So I think for me, that wasn't such a big deal. And it didn't, it ended up obviously not being a big deal for me and Christina. But one thing that there was just like a kind of a joke, which is funny. Hannah Devine says, how many elders went home and they said, hey, honey, guess what we can do now? But like legitimately, that's probably a thing that happens. And, you know, imagine you've trained your brain for your entire life to think that this is unclean and you're not supposed to do this. And then your husband comes home and tells you, hey, now you have to do this. That's the experience that a lot of witnesses have, if not most of them have, getting married, as you go from constantly repressing your sexual desires to having to like snap on a dime, all of a sudden be a sexual person. And I think these sorts of rules enforce that. Even, you know, positive changes like this still create this confusion.
Well, my friend Laura Anderson, she wrote the book. Here, I'll hold it up for the camera. She wrote the book When Religion Hurts You. Fantastic book.
Yes.
She's a trauma-informed therapist and also an ex-evangelical, and she has worked with people who have been victims of actual sexual violence as well as victims of purity culture. And she said everything from like erectile dysfunction to like inability to climax to vaginismus can be found as a result of sexual assault, but also as a result of purity culture. And these sexual dysfunctions, it's like the body saying this thing is not safe for me. And so the body sort of shuts down around that activity. And it is, in a sense, the way she explained it was, it is somebody else removing your autonomy and authority over your own body and taking it away from you. And this is how your body responds to keep you safe and make you feel protected, is it shuts down around this aspect of who you are now. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, it's like, thank you, Watchtower in 2025 for reversing this. What about all of the people from 1985 to 2025 who you
Yes.
basically like fucked up mentally because of this doctrine? But you know, as they've said, they don't owe us any apologies, and they're never going to give any. So
Right. Marriages, I mean, this is the kind of thing that could really ruin a marriage, a relationship, all over an arbitrary rule of that. Maybe if both partners are able to have an open conversation about what they really wanted, this would be a hurdle that would be no problem for them to overcome. But when you throw in this extra thing, this other rule, this hierarchy that you have to conform to, it's been said that Jehovah's Witnesses are a cult or are a sex cult, but they're just an anti-sex cult. And I think that it's true when you get into high control groups, even if it's like a bunch of rules about things you're not allowed to do, they always have rules about sex.
yeah, it's like, I've always said this. You this don't think about a pink elephant. Don't think about a pink elephant. What's the first thing that pops into your mind? A pink elephant. And it's like, I am less obsessed with or even conscious of the fact that sex exists as a thing in my day-to-day life now than ever before as a Jehovah's Witness. As a Jehovah's Witness, it popped into, especially from the ages of 14 to 25, it's on my mind constantly. And,
Yeah.
even when I was married, because again, I don't have full bodily autonomy. There's thing, you know, I can't do anything without my wife. It's still on my mind all the time, and then it creates tension between you and your wife with the marital due and all that stuff. And I didn't want to be an asshole and invoke that scripture. So I was just kind of trying, like, it was like even being married doesn't really fully give either person full autonomy, as we've just seen. And then now being a worldly apostate who's single for long stretches of time, and it's just, yeah, you really are obsessed with it as a JW, or I should say
Yes.
I shouldn't say that that would be a little bit of a sweeping generalization. They set up the conditions under which it's very easy for this thing to become like an obsessive thought that you're constantly battling when it doesn't have to be.
Yes, because they're telling you this is something to be ashamed of. Don't dwell on this. Don't think about this. If you do, pray for forgiveness. And so you're just like you said, it is the don't think about elephants thing. And it's also something that is repeated to you from the time you are a very little kid throughout your entire life. And so one of the things that witnesses will kind of brag about in court when they are finally held to task for the way that they cover over CSA is they'll say, well, we don't have Sunday services that separate children and their parents, but that's not necessarily good because that just means that there's no curriculum that is appropriate for children. It just means that, all of these weird quotes that
Number
we've been
four talk.
reading,
Number
everything
four
we've
talk
been
based on
reading,
the Young People Ask book, given
yes.
just casually in the middle of everything else for 5 minutes.
Oh yeah, this is all stuff that kids would hear. Like imagine if I uploaded this and clicked the yes, this video is for kids button on YouTube. But that's what jw.org does for every single video where they quote things about, love play and fondling genitals and how oral sex is gay. Like that's all stuff that is totally appropriate for kids according to them.
Richard says if she sits on your face, God can't see you.
This is inappropriate, and I think we have to end the stream. No, okay, so
this is inappropriate conversation, brother. Let's change the topic.
This is generally not that kind of show, I have to say. Let's just quickly, if I may, read.
The rear end is approaching.
Wait, what was said in 2007? So, okay. Oh, okay. Well, I want to say this before we go. Sorry, I keep on saying, oh, okay. But up until now, if a Jehovah's Witness couple asked the elders what to do, which somebody asked earlier, how would the elders ever find out about this? It's because people go to the elders because you're trained to self-report and self-police. But if they were to go to the elders and ask, the elders were directed to refer to this quote, not from the 2016 thing that we read earlier about love play, but this weird little thing from 2011, which says pornea is the immoral use of genitals, and that includes oral sex, anal sex, and manipulation of the genitals between individuals. Weird. So that was the canon until now, basically.
I think that's in reference to unmarried couples not trying to find unmarried people looking for a loophole. I'm not sure, but I think pornea, and then defining pornea is like, hey, pornea covers everything, just so you know. So if you're not married, don't think you're going to go get an HJ or a BJ and not get in trouble with the elders.
Don't think that you're going to look for a loophole through the poop hole. Anyway, we have to go. No, okay, we're going to. I think we're going to take some calls, but you know what I want to do before that is I want to take just a little break. And I said that, but I didn't actually pull up the thing that I wanted to take a break with. So, RC, do you have anything final to say about this? About this subject matter before we take some calls?
Maybe we should just say a closing prayer real quick.
Okay, yeah. Maybe we'll each say something that we're thankful for.
Oh, man.
I'm thankful for the fact that I can now legally have buttual and mouthual relations with my wife.
Yeah, I'm
what a blessing
that I am no longer allowing geriatric dipshits to tell me how to enjoy myself.
You really shouldn't do that. Like, you really shouldn't let geriatric dipshits tell you how to live your life. Hey, thanks for Natmis, who made a donation for Pornea. We appreciate that. Please donate to Pornea to keep the lights on around here. You know, this is the kind of stream that YouTube wants to try and suppress. Free speech is constantly being silenced, and my streams about the legalities of oral and anal sex within Jehovah's Witnesses are constantly being silenced by the lamestream media. No, okay, so this actually, like, I'm kind of happy that we have an opportunity to talk about this, because I've been working on a video for a while now about the obsession that the group has with controlling masturbation, and using that as a conversation to talk about the way that cults consistently do this, including like the no FAP movement and the kind of manosphere movement that's happening now that kind of try and impose that weird sexual purity culture upon boys.
If you can gatekeep human experience, and then humans want to experience being human, and you gatekeep that, and then what you're doing, you're putting people in a bind where they're constantly going to feel guilty, and that puts them under control, because it's like, well, this thing that's completely normal, natural, and healthy and just part of being human is bad and evil and comes from the devil, and that's why you need us.
Yes.
And so it makes sense to me how they just find, music, don't get a career, like, don't pursue your passion. If you have there's a career that you want, like,
right.
Well, of course, because first of all, it's competition for Jehovah. And then second of all is, the more you long for that ability to make your own decisions and live your life the way you want to, the more guilt you feel.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. If you can impose guilt for natural human feelings and instincts, then you can control a person's very mind. Okay, now I actually am going to take a break. I'm going to take a wee 2-minute bathroom break, and we will be right back.
Oh, okay.
So
should I read the chat while you're gone?
No, I'm going to play a clip.
Oh, okay.
And it's a funny clip while I drink some water and eat a snack. And then we'll drop a link in chat, and we'll play the phone game. The game is that we answer the phone. Okay.
Children as to badness. Like children, we don't want to gain knowledge or experience in what is bad. For example, when it comes to pornography, we want no experience whatsoever in regard to this filthy thing of Satan's world. So if we're tempted to look at pornography, listen to apostate ideas, flirt with someone who's not our mate, it's just a few examples. We wouldn't even think of looking at pornography. If we did that, it would be like feeding a steak dinner to the bad army. Pornography is called adult entertainment.
When you think about entertainment today, it's nearly impossible to try to find something that is acceptable to Jehovah that does not have immoral sex, pornography.
Then there's the bad habit of viewing pornography.
Those who have viewed pornography in the past year should not apply. Also,
People who have been addicted to drugs,
to tobacco, to alcohol, to gambling, to pornography.
I was addicted to alcohol, cigarettes, marijuana, and pornography.
My phone was a door to just about everything, but that door opened to some places I shouldn't have gone. At first, I thought, it's not pornography, so it's okay.
Today, pornography is everywhere. Pornography, the word pornography and erotic literature.
Satan's intention certainly is to try to outwit us with something that's going to take us away from Jehovah. And internet pornography certainly is one of the tools that he uses very effectively. But addiction to pornography, explains one doctor in University of Pennsylvania, produces mental imagery which is permanently implanted in the mind of the user.
According to one estimate, the number of pornographic emails that are sent daily.
The governing body loves you and wants you to experience the immense joy that comes from serving Jehovah with a clean conscience.
The governing body loves you and wants you to experience the great joy that comes from serving Jehovah with a clean conscience.
So it's for this reason that we share with you frank and specific counsel.
Okay.
That little their little 2-minute video about pornography, I think is so funny because it's like, I feel like there's almost like a hypnotic trance that and I don't know if you noticed this, because like it's like pornography's been so destigmatized. It's almost like they're trying to sort of like mentally take you back to the 1970s. So
yeah, like walking
you look
through
at
an
like
alley.
And the furniture and the color scheme, it's like this mid-century modern looking, and there's like green and this bright orange, and he's got the porn stash. The male character has his porn stash like from the 1970s. It's so like, it's weird. It's like they're trying to bring you back to let's bring us back to when this was shameful.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, the video, if you haven't seen it, is really like it's like a guy rolling through the bad part of town. There's like a neon sign with 3 letters burnt out that says like dancing girls, and it really tries to make it seem seedy and scary.
There's so much subtext to it, because this couple is like sitting coldly on the couch, and their body language is just like, there's this disconnection, and like, and it's just sort of like,
hello, wife,
really trying to dramatize like, oh my gosh, look at how horribly they relate to one another because of this thing.
Yes. Okay. I'm going to now, and I don't know if there's, if there was some way I could put a text on screen. I think I can. Let's see here. Create a banner. Look at banner, Michael. Link in chat to call in. Camera's off. I don't want to see your face. This is a call-in show. We only want to hear your voice. What if I do this? Ticker. Hey, look at that. You can make a little scrolly thing. Boom. All right, wink and chat to call in. Okay, so if you've never seen this kind of stream before, it's a complete chaos mess. This is not actually set up to be a call-in show. I don't have a phone line, so I just put a link to StreamYard in chat, and anybody can click on it. Generally speaking, this started as a desire that I had to, like, I don't know, try and be some edgy atheist and debate people, but I was delighted to find that people were not interested in debating, and we just ended up having really nice conversations about people's experience, leaving high control religions. So if you want to talk about your experience leaving the witnesses, if you want to talk about any kind of traumas that you're struggling with, or if you do want to debate us on something, maybe you think that self-abuse is bad. We love it. We're very pro self-abuse on this channel. Maybe you think that it is gay to give your wife a real rub down.
Please do not.
I don't know any euphemisms.
Do not force me to defend humping pillows, because I will. I will defend it.
Oh, and I will. And I do it a lot. And I defend it a lot of times when no one's even around to hear me. Best idea in the XJW sphere. What about adult breastfeeding? What do you mean by that? I don't understand this question.
What about adult breastfeeding?
Yeah, what about it? People say that this is a good idea, and yet, is anybody calling in? No. And here's the real truth here, is that there's a hard out, because Severance starts at 9 o'clock p.m., and so in an hour, we're donezo. We have a caller, and it's... her? I should probably tell people to put their pronouns in their name too, but it's Kim. Is this my friend
Hello.
Kim? Hello, you're on the show. You're on Religious Trauma Call-In Show. Working title.
Perfect. My pronouns are they, them.
They, them. You're a little quiet.
Okay, let me see if I can put the volume a bit up. I don't know if you
I
can
might be
hear
able
me.
to manually turn you up.
Okay.
What brings you in today? What brings you into our little call-in corner?
Well, growing up Jehovah's Witness, I knew I was different since I was a kid. And I am basically under the trans umbrella.
Okay.
And I was ministerial servant, pioneer. When I was in high school, I went to an English congregation. I'm originally from Puerto Rico, and Spanish congregation was where I grew up. I helped in the English congregation. I moved then to Wyoming, United States, to help in a small Spanish congregation there too, in 2016. And all this topic was very interesting for me because when I was disfellowshipped, it was because of watching gay porn. And I
now this
knew
is, you said
about-
2016. This is right around the Love Play article we were reading earlier.
Yes, yes.
Did that come into your decision at all to watch gay pornography? No.
Just for listeners, so we can clarify, to give context to your experience, straight porn is not a disfellowshipping offense, but gay
It is
porn
not.
is. Gay porn is.
Yeah, I at that moment, and I knew about an elder who actually was just have a slap on the wrist because he was watching porn. So he was removed, but he was not disfellowshipped. In my case, I was disfellowshipped, and even a family member who actually committed adultery with other women, in plural, he also received a slap on the finger, on the hand. But
Really?
just because I watch gay porn, I was disfellowshipped. Yes.
Good Lord, that's so ridiculous.
It's wild. My own experience when I was talking about, I confessed to the elders, I was interrogated about what kinds of pornography I had ever viewed.
Yes.
And it was the same thing. They wanted to know if I had watched the stuff that's a disfellowshipping offense or not.
Mm-hmm.
It's
they wanted every detail, every
bizarre.
single detail.
Yeah.
Now, were you experiencing, I don't want to, like assume you're experienced at all. You said you go by they, them pronouns. Was that something that you were kind of questioning at the time, being a witness as well, like when you were a servant and all that?
It's funny because when I was a kid, I always knew since I was 5 years old that I like men, and I always knew that I was different. I tend to be more feminine. And in the parties, everyone was allowed to use the feather boas and take pictures, but I was not allowed to do it. Like my standards for everyone was lower. For me, I was not allowed to have or even touch the feathered boas. So
Just
it
to
was very interesting.
let me clarify. Are you saying like in your culture, other like male identifying individuals could touch feather boas, but you couldn't because they were singling you out, or the women were using the boas and then but not the men?
Sometimes they will just do like funny parties type of thing, and they will have funny things to for you to put on and take pictures in a group. And I was
Uh,
able to see that the other guys were completely fine putting the feather boas that were supposed to be for the women and take pictures with it. But if I ever touch one, my immediately my mom and family members will jump in and just immediately belated me for even try them. So I was always seeing the double standards. How my brothers were okay with it, but I was not.
That sucks.
Uh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And
So your
you
mom
know,
sort of singled you out and said, "Not this one. I don't want to. I don't want him getting too tempted." I'm sorry. I don't
yes,
mean to. I'm past tense gendering you. He, present tense they. I apologize for that.
it's okay. Yeah, no, you're completely true. And even when people used to do karaoke, if I choose a woman's song, let's say Shakira, for example, I will get in trouble, but the other ones, not. So it was a constant battle against my identity because everyone kind of knew that I was different, and they were reinforcing and putting me on a little box. Uh, it was very hard at that moment, but something that helped me wake up was not my identity, was actually the child sexual abuse that
mm.
was the break for me. Like when I started learning all about that, I said, I'm done with that. I cannot I cannot be part of this organization ever again. I said, I even sent a text to my family. If I have to stand for the child sexual abuse cases and that is considered apostasy, I am the proud apostate. I'm letting you know now. And immediately they cut all communication after that text.
Mm.
uh,
Yeah.
and they were not able to receive the message. I said, like, this is in the Australian Royal Commission. Just look it up. It's not from apostate. Just look the government source. But they did not want to hear about it.
Yeah.
It's so sad because your reaction is what someone's reaction should be to finding out that their
Yeah.
religion is covering up child sexual abuse. And
Hmm.
it's really only by conditioning and called brainwashing that they're able to just strangle that natural reaction out of people.
I feel like the learning about the child sex abuse is almost like a secondary trauma because
Yeah.
there's this experience
Mm.
of everything sexual is regulated, and we are this morally clean, morally pure organization in this sense of pride and maybe even assume superiority over the world. And it really is a sort of betrayal to realize that it was all smoke and mirrors and they don't actually give a shit about, like, of all the sexual acts that should actually matter,
Hmm.
those are the ones that should matter, and that's where they're dropping the ball the most.
Yeah, absolutely. For me, it was a completely eye-opening thing. I was okay me being deleted and being even harmed for being gay. and been this fellowship 20 times if needed. I did not care for that. I said, like, I am the sinner, I am the bad one. But when it comes to this particular topic, for me was like the wake up call. Doctrine did not wake me up, but emotional distress was what wake me up. And that's how I see the difference. Like people can wake up in one or the other. My case was definitely the emotional side of things. And once that wake me up, and also I said, okay, wait, I am gay. I have to find other ex-Jehovah's Witnesses who are like me. And then I discovered Germ and Lloyd around the same time. Which also, if I'm not wrong, like you were waking up around the same time I was, because I remember your first few videos when you were not showing your face.
Right. Yeah.
So it was around the same time and after 2020, somewhere there.
Yep.
And
We're on the same time.
Yep.
Our gay awakenings were happening at the same time. Across time and space.
I liked what you said about waking up. You wake up either because your mind has been opened or your heart has been broken.
Yes.
And often whichever one comes first, the second one follows as a result. You either start expanding your way of seeing the world and then discover things that break your heart.
Yeah.
Or you get hurt in the organization and then that causes you to start expanding your thinking.
Yeah.
I did just want to two quick things. I wanted to just shout this out. We are only ironically saying that because that is
like haha
Watchtower's phrasing. No, that's
huge dose of sarcasm referring to that.
Yes,
because
not reflective of the opinions of the alt-worldly channel. I did want to. We've got some other callers, Kim. I really appreciate you calling in. I do like to try and
very quick thing before I go. Very quick.
Yeah, I was gonna give you one last thing before I kick your ass to the curb, which unfortunately is how all these calls have to end.
Well, I really appreciate all you do. In my case, I have been reconstructing myself. Right now, I'm taking some courses in IFS, which is Internal Family System, related to mental health. I'm also getting trained on trauma-informed therapy. So I'm taking these courses so I can actually work with people. So I'm actually very proud of how far I have come and how I'm getting ready to be able to put myself out there to help others.
Hey, first of all, I'm a huge fan of IFS. So
awesome.
Congratulations. You're in my personal opinion, as a non-professional, you are on the right path as far as helping people like us. Check out a person named Laura E. Anderson. She's a trauma-informed therapist. She does IFS, somatics, and trauma-informed therapy, like all of the stuff. She's versed on CPTSD. She's written books and things. Try to find her on the internet. I think that she has a lot of insights and is far ahead of a lot of the general therapy profession when it comes to this stuff. So you might find her useful for your own journey of becoming a professional.
Perfect. What's the name again, please?
Laura E. Anderson. Her book is called When Religion Hurts You. But you can find Laura Anderson on Instagram, and she has a podcast called Sunday School Dropouts with other mental health professionals.
Yes, great podcast.
Well, I will check it out. Thank you very much, guys. This was amazing. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And like Chat was saying, thanks for being so real and vulnerable with us.
Jane Spitfire is asking IFS, Individual Informed Therapy. Jane, there's a book called No Bad Parts that you can look up if you're curious to learn what IFS is. It's basically the idea is that you are trying to identify these fractures in your psyche and sort of reunify the parts of you that you exiled as a Jehovah's Witness and bring everything back into conscious awareness and reintegrate it. That's the basic concept.
Yes, thank you for that recap, by the way. I believe next, and I am just eyeballing it, but I'm pretty sure next on our list is Hayley. Welcome to whatever this is.
Hello, party people. Good to see everybody.
Hey, party people, what's going on? Is Hayley? Is that right?
Yes, Hayley, she, her, despite the voice. Looks like you accidentally invited every single trans person, XJW trans person on your stream. Congrats.
Not an accident at all. Not an accident. Always invited all the time.
Heck yeah. So a similar vein to what Kim was talking about, I wanted to share a little bit of my experience getting
yeah, please,
in trouble with pornea and such. So porn for me was kind of weirdly my way of figuring out that I was trans. That's kind of a weird journey to take with it, but yeah, right.
No, I mean, hey, your options are limited when you're a Jehovah's Witness, you know.
So exactly, I was literally going to say exactly that. How was I supposed to know? It's, you know, I figured out that I was at the very least queer, you know, sort of into high school. So this would have been like between 2012, 2016. And I mean, didn't have the language to say I was trans until well after that. So, I mean, what's a girl to do, right? Except for, you know, whatever was kind of making me feel validated at the time was through pornography. So when I eventually, you know, when my conscience sort of ate at me enough to where I approached the elders about it, you know, I didn't upfront say that it was like that kind of porn. I kind of vaguely hinted that it was homosexual in nature. Again, the other thing is, up until this point, you know, there wasn't any talks, or there was one article, like if you went to the library and like Google searched in there, you know, transgender, you know, old terms.
Like in the Watchtower CD.
Yeah, exactly. The old,
yeah, okay.
Exactly. You get one article from an Awake in like the 80s talking about trans German priests or something like that. Like there's nothing, because Jehovah's Witnesses don't think trans people exist anyways. What's the issue? So, you know, I went into it thinking, okay, well, at the very least, like they can help me anyways, because that's their job, quote unquote. And when I started talking about it, the focus of that elders meeting was very much on the homosexuality, not the porn, which was interesting. You know, in my head, I built it up so heavily that, like, you know, the porn, because that was the big thing to me, that the type of porn wasn't as big of a deal, I guess, but for them, it was very much the opposite, to the point where I kind of halfway through started lying about what I was watching, because I was just so like, I'm like, I don't want to. They're like, they were asking very invasive questions. I just wasn't comfortable sharing everything.
No, for sure. And it's, I mean, to not to cut you off, but to explain for people, like, folks can go back and watch previous videos where, like, I've talked about this, but the kinds of questions that the elders ask are so invasive and so specific and so detailed. It's really, really gross. And I actually think that the last time RC was on, we kind of talked about this in one of the elder training videos. But yes, just my sympathies to you, Hayley, because it's an unpleasant experience.
I very much am of the opinion that some of these brothers are getting some sort of vicarious thrill through this experience of sitting on these.
Totally agree.
I mean, I know, as a ministerial servant who struggled with all this stuff, I remember thinking, what would I do if I was ever on a judicial committee and someone was telling me something and I was getting turned on by it, you know, because, and I never got put in that position, but I look back now and I think that's a perfectly reasonable question, and something that is probably happening all the time and indulged by these men, you know?
And you see it all the time in any kind of sort of power structure where you know, authority is kind of pushed downwards. You know, elders aren't super high on the food chain, but they have enough power to where, you know, it's only a matter of time where somebody is going to, you know, exercise some sort of inappropriate, you know, kind of power dynamic there, and thus get a thrill out of it. So yeah, no, I totally agree with that. And some of them too are in the closet anyways, and so they're, you know, they're probably not to say, like, that's not to how do I phrase that? Like, it not to say that like that kind of sexual deviancy is specific to gay people, like, but anywho, I phrased that badly.
Yeah.
But I think
no. Well, I was
going
gonna say.
like, yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, if we're talking about child sex abuse, the vast majority, I mean, the majority of abusers are heterosexually married men.
Right.
So, I mean, that's the other, and religious and Christian. So, you know, that's, yeah, that whole topic pisses me off so much.
Yeah.
I have family members who were CSA'd by a Jehovah's Witness relative who was heterosexually married, and just like, you know, the happy-go-lucky old man in the Kingdom Hall that everybody loved. He wasn't openly gay. So that whole idea is just that starting to shift attention to the LGBTQ community, you know, politically, it just pisses me off so much.
I was gonna just say real quick, Hayley, I appreciate you sharing that thing about like porn being just a way that you discovered a part of yourself. That actually seems to be a common experience in chat and like just across the board. And I know that was for me too as a bisexual person, because you just don't know. You have no vocabulary. You can't have conversations or just talk to people. So that is weirdly... Your secret shame is the one way you figure it out.
I'm laughing because as a fellow bisexual person, I just remember like, you know, breaking the rules, but then also being like, oh, I was kind of checking out the guy too. Like, oh,
yeah,
you know,
you try and like time it right in your head.
Yeah.
Where it's like, well, I was thinking of a girl at the last second.
Yeah,
so
yeah,
okay.
oh, yeah.
No,
I
it's
think
I
I
really like her body. I don't have any weird feelings about wanting to be her at all. I don't, you know.
Oh yeah. Oh, you know, now I understand what you're saying. That makes a lot of sense. Wow. Yeah, that would be a very unique experience as a JW. Very isolating.
Very isolating, and I guess like, just where else are you supposed to turn to other than, you know, trying to basically just pray the gay away? And, you know, as evidenced by my story, you know, I was not only punished in the more traditional JW way of like, because I wasn't disfellowshipped for what I was doing, because I was so just like, I went to them very distraught about it, because by this point I was very like very, very, very preemie. And so I think I kind of got that, and I hadn't been in trouble for anything. So and the elders had known me since I was a kid. I probably got a little bit of sort of pseudo nepotism and only got reproved for it. But what did happen to me was that afterwards, subsequently, I was definitely looked at differently because they knew. So I was passed up for all kinds of, you know, quote unquote privileges. You know, if I was trying to kind of like, you know, I was trying to be the goody two shoes and put in my time and, you know, try not to lie about it, and you know, do on the fly assignments and mic work and, you know, all the stuff that you're supposed to do as a kind of good Jehovah's Witness brother, quote unquote, to, you know, move up in the ranks and to, you know, seemingly seem more spiritual. And I would get knocked down a lot for, you know, trying to reach out for stuff and asking, you know, oh, could I, you know, help out with this and that? And they'd be like, no, like we're not sure, or blah blah. And, you know, eventually, you know, got the idea that it was just merely because I was struggling with this and that they knew. That followed me to another congregation, and then people would ask me like, hey, why aren't you doing this, or why aren't you, you know, reaching out for that? And then the sort of guilt and shame of not doing these things because, you know, your faith is tied to your public show, your works.
Yeah.
That,
all,
you know,
the visible things.
Well, yeah, you
right,
know,
all the visible things.
Were you in 2014?
Sorry, one more time.
Were you still in it in 2014?
Yes.
So one of the most like the sort of like moment where I was like, what the fuck is happening was Anthony Morris getting up there on his rant about you should be a ministerial servant by a certain age, or nobody should be looking at you as a meritable guy.
Oh yeah, I remember.
And I was just like, I would, you fucking asshole. Like, because there is so much, like what you're describing, this politics is like, you can have an advocate for you on the on the elder body, and you can get away with shit, or you can get counseled, removed, and reappointed immediately in 2 years. And then you can also get elders who they have a problem with you.
Right.
And you're screwed. You're not going to be a servant until you're like 28. And then it's like Anthony Morris is like, well, if you're not a ministerial servant by the age of 22, like something's wrong with you. And it's just like, it's not under your control sometimes,
Yeah, absolutely. Hayley, I really appreciate you calling in. I am going to move on to some other callers. Do you have any parting words, threats, demands?
Are you content with the stream being demonetized so I can make some actionable threats at certain people in the U.S.? Because I wouldn't mind doing so just to get some anger out.
Let's
we're pushing the limits pretty far already.
Considering how all the federal agencies that keep track of that stuff have been co-opted, I would rather not be on a watch list.
Yeah, fair enough. Lord knows I'm going first, but I don't want to incriminate you guys either. So
oh God, well, hey, maybe that can be next stream. Maybe we can just.
Hey, but
yeah. By the way, yes, hello.
Hey, just know, like, there's a resistance on your side. Like, I know,
absolutely.
I know more than 50% of the country voted against you, but damn near close to 50% of us are sitting here saying, "Fuck all this shit."
Yeah. 100%.
I appreciate you guys. Thank you for allowing me this little soapbox.
Yeah,
absolutely. It was our pleasure. All that being said, you are kicked from the studio. Goodbye. Okay, now and it happens. It can happen just that quick, folks. When I kick you from the studio, it's dispassionate and tough but fair. I don't really know what I'm saying. I think it's TrashPanda is next. TrashPanda, he, him. Welcome to the show. What brings you in today? Oh, I think I've got you muted, but now you're unmuted.
Oh, good, because what I said before was really awkward, so that worked out well. Hello.
Hello.
I had a very interesting journey in even figuring out what sex was as a witness. I had this whole thing I did, as a kid. I really like video games, so I would hide some video games under my captain's bed that I did homework for on the playground. So I would like to move under my parents' room to make sure that I would have enough warning if they came to catch me doing that, because these are all contraband. They couldn't know I had these. But
these are video games?
Yes, video games. But
okay.
Because I chose that, and I still remember because I specifically chose that when we moved into that house, I could hear them every night. Every gosh dang night.
No.
And I didn't know what was going on. I used to think of it, I was I had a little iPod shuffle, but it wasn't loud enough to cover it up. All I knew was that there was some squeaking and there was some yelling. I thought there was a squirrel.
You heard a mommy and a daddy Spider-Man fighting?
Yeah, well,
wrestling in the other room.
I had a little PSP with a web browser on it, and I'm just awkwardly typing in on it. Why are mommy daddy fighting? Why mom dad fight with squirrel? Do squirrels come inside often? Stuff like that. But after enough Googling, you get to some cheeky blog post. It's oh, probably your parents are doing it, and then you kind of go down that. So
wow,
that's how I found out about all that, except from weird places.
From a WikiHow that's guys, are my parents fighting or having sex?
Because this was way earlier. This is before a lot of the internet institutions we have today. So I'm just kind of traveling into the raw dog internet, dude. It was just anything and everything. It could possibly just random people writing pictures of this is how sex works.
Did you consider that your parents were merely engaging in love play? That was actually a beautiful gift from and to Jehovah.
It just didn't sound that loving, I gotta say. So then I finally...
Yeah, I had some similar experiences, unfortunately.
I finally went to my school media center and I rented a book called, it was like a book about you. It was a book about like the female anatomy. Because I was a huge book nerd as a kid. I was like honor roll, like really took school seriously. So that was my reaction. I was like, oh, I'll just go look this up. The media center teacher called my parents and said I was trying to look up this book full of naked little girls.
Wait, so this is a book that's available in the school library, but you're not allowed to read it without them raising an eyebrow?
This is Florida. I think this.
I was literally about to ask if it was Florida.
Yeah, it was Florida.
I am resisting going on like such a political rant because I know that's not this purview. But like, for God's sake, like I feel the same way. I've had 2 ex-JW friends turn MAGA, and I'm just like, how do you get stripped of your own bodily autonomy for your entire life in this fucking religion, and then turn around and join in taking it away from others? Like, what the fuck?
I know.
And the thing you're telling me about like the school and stuff is like it's a very similar thing, which is all of this like, let's just push gay people and trans people back into the closet. Well, I'm thankful that I had exposure to that throughout my life, because I was isolated and alone in the organization, realizing that I was mildly attracted to men. But at least as it became more out in the open in the media and stuff, I could feel a little bit less isolated and alone. And so it's like these people come in and go, oh, we shouldn't be teaching children this stuff. They're too young to understand it. And I'm like, if they're old enough to start doing things on their own in their bedroom, they're old enough to know who and what they're attracted to. And they should be old enough to then know that they're not a freak and they're not a weirdo and they're not alone. So if we erase these people from public view, what you're trying to do is you're trying to push teenagers into guilt and isolation and shame, because you're not going to make them straight. That's not what you're going to do. You're just going to make them hate themselves.
They don't understand that part. That's always the part. I'm gay as heck, so yeah, I totally get that. Which makes it really funny that this teacher panicked about that, because I was not looking at that for any reason other than literal education. I had the most pure reasons for renting that book, and I didn't make it weird. I wasn't like, I'm gonna get this book full of naked people. I was just like,
you didn't go to the library teacher lasciviously.
How old were you? Because even if you were, so what?
13.
Yeah, so it's like, I mean, I'm not saying children need access to straight up pornography, but I'm saying like, if you're trying to figure things out and you're curious about what the other person's bodies look like that's legitimate.
That's like the best place to get it.
That's legitimate.
It's a library.
Better a library book than a porno, right? And
we entrust librarians
I had access to pornography at 14 from other kids at school. You could find it laying in a gutter on the street. So all of this panic is just so wild to me. And
they based that JW porn video off of RC.
Yeah,
gutter.
I have one of my ex-girlfriends was ex-JW, and she had kids of that age. And obviously, it's not like, hey, go watch porn, kids. No, you have a grown-up conversation about like, this is like, let's have a grown-up conversation. And and here's what can happen that can be a bad negative consequence if you go seeking out certain material. And if you have questions, come to me. Rather than just hiding it, turning into this awful, shameful secret then of course the kids are going to go find the absolute worst possible source on their own, because it's available.
Well, yeah, especially if you obscure everything. I mean, what would have been nice is if I didn't have this weird secretive relationship with my parents, and I could have just asked them, hey, what's going on in your room at night? Then they could have at least lied to me or something. That would have probably been the easiest way out. But that's just not the kind of relationship your average JW kid has with their parents, basically ever.
Do you mind if I ask, did you make it out of the religion, or are you PMO?
Oh yeah, I'm out. I've been out for, I got in 2014. I got
oh nice.
I got DF'd out of Bethel for the old BJ at the BW.
Whoa! Wait, what's the BW?
Bethel Walk Hill.
Hey. Cock Hill.
I honestly, dude, that place is so full of gay people. It is insane.
Oh, man.
I think so. What I think is happening. You know how like there can be kind of the situation that arises in small congregations where people end up kind of having to get married because they're the only two available people.
Yeah.
And then imagine if one of those people is a gay boy. He really has only one option in that scenario as a JW, and he has to smash that gift to singleness button. He's got to go to Bethel. You know, this was when they were like doing construction on Walk-Hill, so they were like, we need as many 19-year-old lumber workers as possible. So there was a lot of people like me there.
Yeah,
that's
the whole like I'll go to Bethel, and this will because of the whole make the truth your own and become so busy in Jehovah's service and reach out for more things, and like magically all these things that you're not supposed to want will just go away, and then you get there and there's a bunch of people just like you trying to make things go away.
Yeah, that like messed with my head.
TrashPanda, I have a fun question before I have to kick you out.
Oh yeah,
but I think this is a good question, and RC, feel free to jump in on this too. But do you have any gay dirt on anybody who is still a Jehovah's Witness that, you know, wouldn't want anybody to know? Not that you don't say it, but like, do you have secret knowledge still?
You know, it's funny, when I got DF'd, one of the things they kept repeatedly asking me is if there was anyone else that I knew about, other than the guy I got caught with, of which there were many. I actually have checked in on all the ones whose names I can remember. 4 of them are married to women now and still at Bethel, and 2 of them went home to home congregation and also got married.
Oh, God, I want to know if any of them are people that I know.
I have dirt on somebody, and this person they're down low. There are ex-JWs fully out who are aware of their activity because he rolls with, you know, leads a double life at times and rolls with ex-JWs. But he's fully mentally in. And he got invited to my sister's wedding, and I didn't because I'm an apostate. And he's just doing his thing and just not telling people.
Yeah, that happens.
So yeah, and it's a shame. I feel it's like as frustrated as you get. There's also pity for these folks because it's really like he goes through a stage for a little while and then feels bad and goes all the way back in, you know. And I remember doing that myself with other issues. I would just be like,
same.
This close to being like, fuck all this, and then just like totally re-indoctrinate myself for a year.
You're like, no, I'm going to triple down. Yeah. Yep. Well, TrashPanda, this has been delightful.
Muchas gracias, senor.
I appreciate it. It's nothing personal, but you're kicked. You've been kicked from the studio. Now, next in our call line, how are we holding up, RC? You doing good?
We're doing good. I was actually looking
awesome.
for you. Your show starts in 21 minutes. Is that right?
We're good. I should be good because I'm having a blast. And I believe now next up on the docket is Ireland. Him. Ireland, is your name true to where you are from?
It is not. So I'm from Canada.
The 51st state.
Yep, that's us. So I'm a transgender man, and I was talking to friends at high school. I went to public school, and I was discussing.
Where did you go to? Oh, sorry to interrupt. By the way, do you mind if I ask? Like, was it a fairly accepting public school?
Oh yeah, the high school that I went to was like the gay school in my city.
Okay.
Like it was the gay school, and it was also primarily people of color, so there wasn't really much opportunity for like hate criming and stuff like that.
That's good. I would love that to be the gold standard for public schools, by the way, is no hate criming, or at least minimum.
There were like the odd person who was like just an awful individual, but they were regarded as the weird one.
Good.
So I feel like I was very lucky in that regard. My parents were very out of touch with that sort of thing. I was born into it. So they didn't really so they didn't really grasp that about my school, so I just kind of said nothing and was able to coast through high school without them being like, "You're around gay people, what?" and like losing their shit.
Nice.
Am I allowed to curse on this? Is that gonna?
Oh yeah,
say whatever.
We do it all the time.
Okay, cool. So I disassociated from them like summer of last year. So a part of me is a bit nervous because this is like the first time I've been on any public platform disavowing them.
Well, congrats. Good for you. That's a big step.
Yeah, I figured here's an opportunity, might as well use it.
I love that.
So
how does it feel to be able to just say that out loud? Like,
I'm actually physically shaking right now.
Oh,
but
I know that feeling.
Yeah, you're not alone.
Like,
that's a common experience.
Like, I know in the long run it's the right thing for me, and I know where my heart actually is when it comes to the organization and my own beliefs. But I feel like, at least for the time being, there's still a piece of me that is like terrified that I'm going to get called up by the elders and I'm going to get in so much trouble for saying something because like I'm committing apostasy right now.
Yeah. So are you, but you're removed from it, or could you actually literally still get in trouble?
No, I'm completely out. I haven't attended in a while. My family don't talk to me. I was not officially disfellowshipped for anything. I just kind of faded out and stopped going, and then my family took that personally and took it upon themselves to just cut me off.
So your nerves is kind of just like your nervous system hasn't caught up to your conscious awareness that this is all okay now. You're still having, like, conditioned response regardless.
So
I did want to shout this comment out just because it's true. Like, I remember going to like even just like the XJW Reddit with trembling hands and like that heart in your pit of your stomach feeling.
Yeah.
And now look at me, just spewing absolute bullshit with no consideration.
The thing I would say to folks who are still like newly out is all of the things that you want to do that were forbidden that scare you, that you have all the time in the world. Like, you don't have to go from like this end all the way to you take your time.
Yeah.
Because you can flood your nervous system and overwhelm yourself going like too far to the other extreme. And then that creates it creates this sort of like, oh my gosh, what's wrong? Why am I feeling this way? Maybe they were right. And it's a trigger. It's a triggered response. So, be kind to yourself, including like, you can take your time adapting to your freedom.
Yeah, absolutely. Like the Armageddon thing, I know, especially now, not to like project anything on you, but I get really stressed and kind of like Armageddon triggered sometimes. Even though I don't believe in like the Jehovah's Witness of Armageddon, it's like the only way my brain was like raised to learn things was that there is an apocalyptic end to things. And it's really nice to just be like, you know what? They were saying the same thing 100 years ago. We're all still here. You know what I mean?
This weird,
like, pace yourself thing.
This weird, heavy sense of impending doom, and you can't put your finger on it. And then you're like, this is still some JW wiring, and I'm attributing it to other things, but it's the same feeling.
I am hard of hearing, and the congregation that I attended was all in American Sign Language. So I feel like the culture between just the deaf and hard of hearing JWs and the hearing, even if it was just English, was still a little bit different. And I find a lot of the deaf community within the JW community like are extra diehard about Armageddon and about the New World.
Interesting.
Because so obviously there's the whole like in the New World, if you were a good witness, you will, like, anything that's wrong with your body, disabilities or otherwise, will be fixed.
Yeah.
So because that gets pushed so heavily when it's predominantly deaf people, they're pushing the whole narrative of you can be fixed. And because obviously being hearing impaired is a disability, there's things that we've all struggled with and it's made our lives miserable. So hearing you're going to be fixed makes everyone fixate on that. So being that that's the version of regarding the apocalypse that I was exposed to, I feel that really hard, because like you could not have a conversation with a deaf witness and not have them be like, well, in the new world, I'm going to be able to hear and I'll be able to use my voice and sound like a normal person and I'll be able to do this and this and this and this.
Yeah.
And
I have to imagine wanting to be a part of the dominant culture for once.
Well,
is also part of it. It's like I can just be like everybody else and not have this thing that automatically identifies me as different.
Well, historically, that's precisely how the deaf and hard of hearing were regarded. Like there's a phrase, it's super like bigoted now, but deaf people were labeled as deaf and dumb. They were just assumed that they had no reasoning capacity and could not think, could not understand language, could not function as an individual, when the reality of it is they just can't hear. So being that that's the perception, like there's weird infantilization that happens directed at deaf and hard of hearing people. I've been in situations completely outside of witness gatherings and stuff like that, where my hard of hearing comes up and the hearing person I'm talking to turns to whoever I'm with to talk to them so that person can tell me what they're saying. Meanwhile, I'm sitting there with my hearing aids on looking at this person and they just act like I'm not there.
That sounds very hard to deal with. That stinks.
It's irritating. It is obnoxiously irritating, but I've gotten to the point where I'll just say something about it. Because if they're going to act like I'm not a human being, I'm going to make them feel bad about it. I will straight up like look at them and be like, hey, so I'm right here. You can ask me. I can speak English. They always get embarrassed about it, but if you're going to say stupid stuff, expect people to act in kind, right?
Yeah.
Hey, do you mind if I ask, like, have you, since kind of starting to deconstruct, has that changed your relationship to your disability, like your hearing ability, or maybe you don't think of it that way anymore? I know that for myself, like I had a chronic illness and I felt that way. Like the Paradise Hope is really dangled over you like a carrot. You are going to finally be fixed. You know, there's no cure for this in this system of things. And then you kind of have to make a different kind of peace with it afterward.
So the way my hearing loss began, I got sick when I was 7, and that impacted my hearing. And I also just have a family history of hearing loss, so that just kind of kickstarted it, and it continued to decline over time. I never had the perception that I was broken or that there was something wrong that needed to be fixed. So when I was hearing people like say that to me, that I was going to be fixed, I disagreed. I was like, there's nothing wrong with me. I am able to function as an individual. I don't feel that my being hard of hearing makes me any less of a functional person. I don't think I need to be fixed. I don't identify with being broken because of my ears. So I feel like being outside of that now has just kind of strengthened that feeling within me. I don't feel any shame about my hearing abilities in any capacity. I'm very proud of the community that I'm a part of. And I don't think there will ever be a day that I feel any type of shame in regard to my hearing or the hearing abilities of the others around me. I feel like just because I'm still working on deconstructing, though, there are other elements of my identity where I do have that ingrained shame that I need to focus on, like, working through, because I'm also a bisexual person. I mentioned before that I'm transgender. Both of those things are wrong to the organization. And like, I've started medically transitioning, and like I'm starting to live as who I feel I am. And on a regular day-to-day basis, I feel happy. I've started feeling better about my body. Dysphoria has been a lot less since I've begun medically transitioning. And despite all of those positives, there's still like a piece of me that is like, Armageddon's going to come and this is going to get me destroyed for eternity, because I felt this way about my body since as long as I could remember, and I'm doing something about it, and that's wrong. I have very vivid memories of like when I first started to kind of like wake up. I would ask questions, and specifically ask questions about transgender people and like Jehovah's view on transgender people. And it is an indisputable fact that there's a difference between gender and sexuality. There are two things that go hand in hand, but they are not the same thing. And I felt that way without having the words to explain that. So anytime I'd had questions about transgender people, I was always pointed in the direction of homosexuality is an abomination. And I'm like, okay, but I'm not saying that I desire sex or romance with someone of the same gender. I'm saying that I do not feel that I am a woman. Those are not the same thing, even though I have a boyfriend right now, so kind of killed two birds with one stone there, but
hell yeah.
Yeah.
But like, I never like felt that it was accurate to state that transgenderism is like homosexuality, even though they are a part of the community. So I just never understood why they were so against it. And the more I thought about it, I like dove into biblical research on my own accord, and I just kept finding more and more things that weren't adding up. I was finding things that were in the Bible that were completely contrary to things that elders were saying, or things that were coming from the governing body. And it just completely unraveled from there. So I feel like my being transgender was what saved me from living a lifetime in this cult. Because that's what kickstarted me to ignore what the people were telling me and think critically about it and do my own research and find the information for myself.
I'm kind of curious, because I had this thought a time or two when I was in. Did you ever think about like Philip? Was it Philip that preached to the Ethiopian eunuch? And then when you learn what a eunuch was, you're like, wait a minute, isn't that kind of like trans or non-binary getting baptized in the Bible? Like, did you ever have that thought? Like, wait a minute, you can get rid of part of your male organs, but you can still get baptized? Like, what?
Yeah, I did have those thoughts. I remember asking my father about it, and he did not have an answer, and he immediately shut me down.
Nothing.
That's how that goes.
Nothing behind the curtain, folks. Move on.
Yeah, it's like, do not look at the man behind the curtain.
Yeah.
He's not there. Move along.
Well, and like the nature of angels, and the there will be no gender, there's no male or female in heaven. You know, like Jesus is portrayed as a bride. If you want to get into all kinds of gender bendy stuff,
all like the 144,000 are all trans technically.
Or the fact that there are multiple times. There are multiple times in the Bible itself where God is referred to as a mother, and a mother is not a man, yet God also is referred to with he, him pronouns, and regarded, like many people have the perception that God is a man. And I had questions about that as well. I asked my mother, and she was like, yeah, God does not have a gender. God is not a man. God is not a woman, which I don't feel that God is real, but if God was real, I feel like that would be an accurate assessment to state that a supernatural divine entity is not confined to human perception of gender.
Yeah.
But I was like, okay, that makes sense. But if it's okay for God to be that way, why can humans not be that way? If we're made to be functioning the same way God is, if we're supposed to express things how God does, why is complex expression of gender okay for God, but it is filthy for humans to do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not like
Not to
that. Don't
go on,
imitate God like that.
not to go on some too far into the weeds, but I was really into aquarium fish. There's a species of fish
Whoa.
called clownfish. And essentially, what will happen is if you have two female clownfish in a tank, one of them will become male, so they can mate.
That's
Yeah, they're
really
like
cool.
The other way around, and it's just like,
intersex.
wait a minute, Jehovah made clownfish? What? Like, wait a minute. Like, there's this weird thing, and I don't want to get too far into this naturalistic fallacy, because you don't have to find examples in nature to justify just living your life how you want to. But it is funny where even if you're going to try to talk about natural and unnatural, even in nature, we have examples of this sort of phenomenon.
Or
Yeah, exactly.
Or I heard a lot of like there's only two gender argument, obviously, because why would anyone think of anything more creative than just that to say when they're trying to be transphobic? And like
There's
even
only
then,
two things.
even there on a biological level, that is not a fact. That is false. Intersex people
Right.
exist, and no matter how hard you try, they're not going to stop existing. They are still a valid individual who exists, and just because you think that only two things are possible doesn't mean that that is correct. There are people that think the earth is flat. That doesn't make it correct just because people think that.
Right. So it's like at least bimodal, but then they're like, but just don't think about it any more than that, okay? Just stop it. It's mostly not Adam and Steve, and it's mostly just male and female, and it's like they just can't allow for any nuance, because it's, it's not actually about spirituality or getting close to God. It's about control and compliance.
Mild correction, because I just fact checked myself. Male clownfish become female. I got it backwards. But same
I just
idea.
quick correction for all of us, or it's not really a correction at all, but I just wanted to give a quick shout out to Aquarium Lady.
I'm sorry, I was so upset that I didn't get around to reading that. He prayed for Jehovah to give him a pure
Yeah, I don't think I pulled it up right.
I was
No, I thought Aquarium Lady was going to be right there.
This is the guy that she had invited him into the house to see the fish. Is that what this is?
Yes. I had the transcript. I had the tapes and everything.
They did the deed.
Okay, guys, just imagine how great that would have been if I had the clip at the ready. So just insert
that would have been my
well-timed shot there.
That would have been my doing for sure. Some worldly girl with an aquarium. Yeah, I would have been disfellowshipped.
I'll bet she used that line on everybody. Well, Ireland, this has been wonderful. This has been a really great conversation, and I just want to say, like, I don't know. I really fucking hate... I know this sounds like cringy, but just like fuck transphobic people for real. Like listening to the experience of trans people was really, really important to my deconstruction process, because when I was really, really questioning, and I started to hear people like ContraPoints start to articulate the complexity of gender and sex, I started to realize that something that I had just always thought of in these like biblical caveman black and white terms was really complicated, and like really smart people had given it a lot of thought, and here I was, a dumb idiot who clearly hadn't thought about it at all. And so like I think that like transness is kind of the enemy of black and white thinking and just like classical gender dynamics, and I think that's why people are afraid of it. But it's because they're fucking lame. I don't know.
And like I totally see that, and like I don't feel that I need every single person on the planet to understand my transness. I don't need that. I just need people to not try to implement laws and things that get people like me killed.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
I don't need everyone.
Shouldn't be too much to fucking ask.
Yeah, you don't need to be you don't need to be vilified or painted as some great threat to people that you're not causing any harm to whatsoever, just minding your business. And it's just the trans panic is just ridiculous.
Like, I am literally just a guy. I'm not going out into the world in the mornings thinking, who can I make the most miserable? Who can I target today to just expose to the most suffering I could conjure up? That's not how I exist in my day-to-day life. And there's also no, who can I find to force to be trans and convert them to being trans? That's not how anyone who is normal and has a healthy relationship with themselves functions.
The thing about trans folks is y'all subvert the dominant paradigm, because the patriarchy doesn't just mistreat women, it dislikes feminine coded traits.
Yes.
So how dare we blend the two? How dare any man
gender blurring?
How dare a man not be a real man and have feminine coded traits prominently? And so the trans folks is kind of like the extreme of just like spitting in the face of the patriarchy and saying, you know, fuck your arbitrary rules. All of your shit's made up. And that's why they target you, is because you are the like on the forefront of subverting the dominant paradigm that they use also to oppress everybody, including cisgendered heterosexual men. You know,
like
don't you dare get in touch with your sensitivity or have some empathy. Apparently, according to Elon, empathy is the security vulnerability of the Western mind now. Fuck.
He's also just permanently stuck in a K-hole, so I don't think his opinion is very valid.
So how dare you be a man who gets in touch with some empathy, has some feminine.
We're actually looking into that. We're actually looking into empathy right now to see if we need to actually have any empathy in the government. And I'm pretty sure that transness, we can just go ahead and delete that from the government.
So if you accept trans folks, then you have to accept that maybe masculinity itself is not exactly what we think it is. And oh boy, that's not going to happen.
And I always have to mention my trans sisters. Yeah, it is a fact that some trans women do still have masculine traits, but a lot of cisgender women also have masculine traits. And people think, oh, you can always tell, but those people who think that end up then targeting cisgender women. And I have seen countless instances of cisgender women literally just going about their day, going to the bathroom and getting brutally assaulted by some moron who thinks that she deserved it just because he thought that she was trans. And like
it happened like last week. It happened in like Texas. Yeah.
Our toddler, everybody's favorite toddler billionaire, and J.K. Rowling went after a woman at the Olympics who was a boxer.
Yes.
From a country where you're not allowed to be trans.
And, Iman Khalif, I believe her name was.
Known as a woman her entire life, based on nothing but the fact that she just didn't fit the stereotypical picture of femininity enough for them to be satisfied. Nothing
J.K.
else.
Rowling got real quiet when Iman Khalif started creating lawsuits about it.
Yeah, so the attack on trans women is also an attack on cisgendered women. Don't think that they will stop there and not start coming for you next.
Oh yeah, absolutely. If you don't speak up for the people who are being targeted, when you're the one being targeted, there's going to be no one to speak up for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Island, you're a real one. I really appreciate you calling in.
Thank you so much for having me.
Lovely.
Yeah,
anytime. Please do it again. Calling, I mean, but you are now kicked. Goodbye. Now listen, that was rough to have to just kick Ireland like that after we had such a lovely conversation with them, but they're gone. So I'm going to have to wrap this up because I am very sleepy and I do have to work. And also severance, I believe we talked about. I'm so sorry if we didn't get to your call. I know we have people we didn't get to. But RC, this was fantastic. You were so great. Thank you so much for joining me
and
helping me make sense of all this.
This is cathartic yet again.
Yes, and thank you for being so open and vulnerable yourself, and for all of our chatters. What a cool bunch of queer punks.
Yeah, all
just
you guys. I honestly, the way the world's going, it's nice to just have all this chat. Just be like, okay, there's,
yes,
here's my tribe right here.
I know. I feel the same way, and that's why I've really liked doing these call-in shows. It's just like, you know what? There's more of us, man. Like there's good people out there. We're all making it through. And like we all have things to be proud of too.
Yeah, yeah, and they can take away some things, but they can't take away our ability to create community within this dystopia that they're trying to build around it.
Exactly. I do just want to remind everybody real quick to like and comment and all that stuff, and to follow RZ on social media, Deconstructing XJW, correct?
Deconstructing_XJW on Instagram. I've been a bit dormant, but I'm about to become active again.
That's right. We need you out there on the streets, on the Instagram streets.
Yeah.
Raising a ruckus. But thank you to everybody in chat. This was really wonderful. I don't know how to end these, so I'm just going to hit end stream, and we're going to awkwardly stare at the camera.
Bye,
just try and
everybody.
focus on how cute Bo has been. Just sleeping there. Bye.